Some of the most beautiful beaches, not only in England, but in my opinion, in Western Europe. Yes, the images I'm showing you now are in England. You can find these in England if you go to this place. So many people come to England and only visit London. And although London is an amazing city, there's so many worthwhile places to see while you're in England. And in this video, I'm going to show you just some of the places that I think you should consider seeing when you're in England. With each of these destinations that I'm going to recommend, I'm going to tell you whereabouts they are, where they are, what is there to do, where to stay, and most importantly, how to get there. Now, I'm aware that most of you watching this will fly into London from wherever you are. So what I want to do to explain how to get to these different places in England from London. Or anyone has a go at me in the comments saying I'm a typical English person, I'm not considering the other countries in the UK, it's because I think they deserve their own videos in their own right. So just for this video, I'm only going to talk about England. Now, the first place that I'm going to recommend that you visit outside of London is the city of York. Now, York is found in the northern part of England in a region called Yorkshire. Now, Yorkshire has some of the most stunning country landscapes in the country. And York itself is one of the most beautiful cities you can find in England. And there is so much to see and do. The history of York goes back a millennia. There's everything there from Romans, Vikings, and Saxon and great medieval kings. And if you're one for a little bit of ghost hunting as well, York is one of the most haunted cities in the UK, and there's a number of great ghost walks that you can do whilst in the city, and I've recommended some of these in the description of this video. Now, although there's so much to do in this city, I'm going to give you a list of some of the things that I think are worth considering. One of these things, which is a really popular thing to do in the city, is walk around the city wall. Now, this doesn't sound too interesting, but trust me, if you want to see some of the most beautiful parts of York, this is a great way to see it. Now, you walk around most of it, give or take. Usually the walk takes about 2 hours, but it is definitely worth it if you want to see some of the great sights that the city has to offer. The next thing, which is probably one of the most popular things you can do in the city, is to go see York Minster Cathedral. Now, this cathedral actually dates back to the year 657. Now, the structure that you see when you're actually there is medieval, which took about 200 years to build in itself, and inside the cathedral is absolutely stunning. You do have to pay to get into the cathedral, but trust me, it is worth it. I've been to many cathedrals throughout Europe, and this is one of the most beautiful. The architecture in there is truly stunning. There is a specific shop that has become an absolute viral sensation on TikTok, and that is called the York's Ghost Merchants. Now, to visit this shop is actually quite a really cool experience. Now, all they do is sell these ghost figurines that you're seeing right now. There's a big one and a little tiny one as well. And they only let a certain amount of people in the shop at one time, so you do have to queue to get in at popular times. But what's really, really cool about it is all the ghosts are unique. You get to choose a few of them. Once you've picked them, they put them in a little box, as you can see here, and the train takes it all the way around to it. And the little cool quirkiness of the shop actually made it a TikTok viral sensation. So if you do want to go to this place, make sure you take the time to go and do it, because there might be a queue. It is really worthwhile seeing, and it's really cool as well. And the last two things you can also do in the city, you can go and visit the Museum of York, which is it sounds a bit lame, but it's actually really, really cool. What they've done, they've got a completely interactive museum where they've taken parts, buildings and houses in York that have been pulled down through modernisation and put them into the museum. So they've got an entire street that was in York actually rebuilt inside. And if you're one who likes ghosts and hauntings, it's actually built in the remains of an old prison, specifically the old women's prison. And where they've created an undertaker area in the museum is where the bodies would have been stored after they would have been executed for crimes. Apparently, this museum is hella haunted as well. So if it's something that you want to go and see and get a little bit of a cool feel, it's definitely worth your time. Now, where's the best places to stay? Well, if you watch my videos, you know that I'm a massive fan of Airbnb. There's so many great places you can find on Airbnb that are right next to the medieval wall and the old medieval centre of the city. So if you're going to stay anywhere, I recommend Airbnb. Here's just some of the options that you can find on Airbnb right in the centre of York, and it's not too expensive either. Now, how do we get there? Well, there's a few different ways you can get there. You can hire out a car from London and drive to York. It's a pretty straightforward drive. It's only a few roads. There's one main motorway that takes you all the way up to Yorkshire, so you can do that. But if you're not too confident, you can actually get a train direct straight out of London there as well. So if you want to get there from London, it's really, really simple. Now, the next city that I'm going to recommend you visit is again situated in the north of England, and it's a city that I've already talked about on one of my other videos, which is some of the most underestimated cities in Europe to visit, and that is the city of Liverpool. Now, Liverpool is situated in the northwest of the country, right near Manchester. Now, why am I talking about Liverpool? Now, because I think Liverpool, to be honest with you, is a city that is really overlooked. But for me, it is one of the most interesting places to go and visit. The city is also full of history and it's full of culture as well. And due to its location, it's pretty cheap to find accommodation in the city. But you might think, yeah, well, that's all well and good, Jack, but what is there to do? Well, there is a lot to do, and a lot of it that isn't too expensive as well. If you're a massive Beatles fan, this is the place to go. It's like a pilgrimage. There's so much to see. You can go and see John and Paul McCartney's childhood homes. You can go and visit Strawberry Fields. There's a number of Beatles museums you can see, and most importantly, you can go to a place called Matthew Street, which has been so important for pop music that's come from the UK. There's a particular venue called the Cavern Club, and the Cavern is where the Beatles played over 200 times before they shot to fame. So it's definitely somewhere that is worth visiting, even if you're not necessarily a Beatles fan, but you're a music fan, it's definitely worth a visit. If you're one for culture and learning about things, there's a number of free museums you can go and do around a place called the Albert Dock. Liverpool itself is an old dock town, and there's a small, really cool looking place called the Albert Dock where there's a number of free museums, free art galleries as well, which is really cool to see. Quite near the Albert Dock as well, you can get a ferry onto the Mersey River, which is the river that goes right next to the city, to see some of the skyline. And up until very, very recently, the Liverpool shoreline, it was a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so it's seriously worth visiting from the water. Apart from the Beatles and music, the other thing that Liverpool are famous for are its two massive football clubs that you can see. So again, if you're a big football fan, you can go and visit the ground of Liverpool FC and Everton Football Club as well. So there's more things for you to do there. And if you're one for a little bit of the culture, sort of bit hipster things, there's a region in the city called the Baltic Triangle, which is for really cool street art, vintage markets and street food as well. So if you want to go and see some of that other part of the city, Liverpool has it all. Liverpool is a bit limited with its hotels, and some of them are quite expensive. So if you do plan on visiting the city, the best thing for you to do is go and hire an Airbnb. I did a few searches around here and I'm just putting up the price just here, and that's the kind of prices you can look at for Airbnb. And remember, with Airbnb, they charge for the apartment or the room, not per person. So if you find a groupie that wants to go, you can actually make these visits really, really cheap. And so Liverpool as a city is really, really accessible to get to. It's actually got its own airport. It has John Lennon Airport, which you can fly to from London. But to be honest, the way that I would recommend that you do it is either hire a car and drive to the city, or take a train from London itself, and the train only takes 2.5 hours, and the car can take about 4 hours depending on traffic. So if you come into the UK, want to go into London, and you want to see somewhere else, you want to go to Liverpool, it's really easy to from London. Now, I've talked quite a lot about the north of England, so I'm going to go a little bit south and west now and talk about the next city, and this is the city of Bath. Now, Bath is in the western part of the country near an area called the Cotswolds, which again in itself is worth a visit. And like York, this is one of the most beautiful cities in the country, and is also one of the most unique looking as well. But what is there to do in this city? Well, Bath, like York, is full of history, which goes way back to the Romans. And what you can go and see here is go and visit the Roman baths. Now, Bath is built on a natural hot spring, and here the Romans built one of their famous baths, which you can go and visit, which is one of the most unique things you can go to see in the world. Again, like most great English cities, there is a beautiful cathedral you can see, And it's also highly recommended that you just explore the city. Bath is absolutely stunning from an architectural point of view and was really built up around the Georgian period. And as you can see here, there are some absolutely beautiful and stunning places you can go and just walk around, particularly here, and have a great summertime picnic on the green and just enjoy the city itself. And also with Bath, it's an absolutely fantastic place to base yourself to do other day trips. Because from Bath you can go and visit part of the Cotswolds, and the Cotswolds has some of the most beautiful English villages and pristine English villages in the country. If you're one for period dramas like Downton Abbey and things like that, you can go and visit a lot of these kind of places that have been truly preserved to look like they would have done. And also you can go and visit one of the most famous places, which is in Somerset, called Glastonbury. Now, for one, of some people feel Glastonbury is a really spiritual place they like to go and see, and it's also very, very famous for one of the biggest music festivals in the world as well. Now, if you're looking for places to stay, unfortunately Bath is quite an expensive city to stay in. That's the only really negative of it. You can find some great Airbnb deals and again some great hotels. It's quite difficult to stay in the city, so a recommendation that I would do is perhaps try and rent out something in the Cotswolds, which is a national park right near the city, so you can stay a little bit out. But the best way to do this is obviously to rent out a car. So if you're not confident of driving in a foreign country, I completely understand. If that's the case, you can find somewhere great in the city, but it's just worth mentioning that is slightly more money than Liverpool or York. And again, it's really simple to get to from London. There is a train that runs direct from London into Bath as well. So if you just don't want to drive, getting the train is a really, really quick and easy way to do this. Now, the fourth place that I'm going to recommend is a really popular seaside town on the south coast of England called Brighton. Now, Brighton, as you can see on the map, is on the south coast of England and is well known for its music, art and great food. One of the best things about Brighton is it's just under an hour away from London via train. So it's a genuine option if you only want to look for a day trip from London if you're only visiting there. But what is there to do in Brighton? Well, being a seaside town, you can visit the beach. You can also visit the famous Brighton Pier. And again, it's really well known for its shopping, and there's a particular area called the Lanes, which is an old medieval part of the city which is all pedestrianised, and you can see go to some really cool, quirky and independent shops. If you're someone who's quite young and likes a lot of art and likes a lot of music, Brighton is absolutely worth visiting. It has a number of great music venues as well, and comedy clubs and boutique fashion. And also, if you're one who likes the royalty side of England, you can go and visit an old royal palace right in the heart of Brighton. This palace was given up by the royal family many years ago now, but you are able to go into the grounds and visit it. It was one that was regularly visited by the famous Queen Victoria, and the architecture of this palace is very, very different to anything else that you'll find in the country because it's inspired by Indian architecture of the mid-19th century. And again, if you're going to stay in Brighton, I'm saying it again, it's Airbnb. With most of these places, it's Airbnb, particularly in Brighton, because you can find some really cool, quirky places to stay. Brighton itself, to find somewhere to stay is quite expensive because it's quite an expensive place to live. But if you want to really experience the nightlife, I'd highly recommend just find an Airbnb for a night outside of London and you will not regret it. But I have some options here on Airbnb to give you a general idea of the price, but so that you can still find something cheap if you just want somewhere to rest your head. Now, the next two options that I'm going to give you for places to see in the country are slightly different, and again, I'm going to take you to the right north of the country, and this is one of the most beautiful parts of England, and that is to visit the Lake District. The Lake District is found in the northwest of England, quite close to the border with Scotland. Some of the scenery in this region of the country is truly stunning. And to experience this destination, you have to get your hiking boots on and be prepared to go on some adventures. Now, being the Lake District, it's kind of in the name. One of the things to do is to go around the many lakes, and one of the most popular is to go around a lake called Windermere. And on this lake, you can visit a number of beautiful towns which surround it, but you can also hire a boat, which is really, really cool thing to do in the summer with your partner or with a family or with a group of friends, hire the boat and just go cruising around the lake. This lake is huge as well, so it's not something that's going to take a little bit of time, and you can spend hours on the lake itself. As well as there, you can go to other towns and visit the town of Grasmere, which again is really famous for having incredible gingerbread. Again, it's a truly unique experience, and you can also go on hikes. Now I genuinely thought I wasn't the kind of person who liked hiking, but if you're someone that likes going to the national parks around Europe, the Lake District is an absolute must view. There is a number of great mountains, and the highest peak in England is found in the Lake District, and this is a mountain called Scuffnell Pike. Right, but there's a number of other mountains that you can climb to, and here's one that I climbed last year, and some of the views, as you can see from these pictures, were absolutely incredible. So the other part of it is where to stay. The Lake District is a huge national park, so it's something that you'll have to do a little bit of research in, and I've actually done a video of when I went to the Lake District, which is above here, which has all the details of different areas that I recommend to stay in, so please watch that if this is an area that you want to consider. But to be honest with you, the best thing for you to do again is hire an Airbnb. Maybe someone that's just outside of some of the towns, because this is the way you'll find the cheapest deal. Now the thing is how to get here. Now you can actually get a train straight out of London, which involves a few different changes, but you can do it. But to get to experience the whole national park, I highly recommend that you hire a car, as getting around with no car limits you with the kind of things that you can see. You can still go around different parts, but you, generally speaking, the easiest thing if you want to experience everything and go a number of hikes and see the whole area, hiring a car is going to be your best bet. The last place that I'm going to recommend isn't just a specific place, it's an area of England, and it's one of the best, and that is the area that we know in England as Cornwall. And Cornwall can be found on the most western part of the country, as far from London as you can get, but it's definitely worth a visit. Some of the most beautiful beaches, not only in England, but in my opinion, in Western Europe. Yes, the images I'm showing you now are in England. You can find these in England if you go to this place. Now, because Cornwall is a big region, I'm going to give you some places that are worth basing yourself, and these are the areas of Newquay, St Ives and Falmouth. And if you base yourself in any of these, the best thing for you to do is have a car so you're able to drive around and visit all of Cornwall and really get the most out of your trip, like I suggested in the Lake District. Another thing you can go and do throughout Cornwall is visit some of the beautiful tiny fishing villages. Beautiful things are dotted all around. These are just some of the ones that I found. And not only that, this is one of the best places in the country you can have proper, and I mean proper, fish and chips. I've seen so many people when they've come to the UK and they think they can have great fish and chips in London, and you're not going to do that. The best places that do the best fish and chips are places that are near the coast, where there's big fishing industries and you're going to get fresh fish, and that's so important with good fish and chips. So Cornwall and anywhere like that is where you're going to find some great fish and chips. So how do we get there? Well, you can actually get a train straight from London. There's actually even a sleeper train that you can get straight from the city. But again, as I've already said, the best way to do it, in my opinion, is drive, because it really is the countryside. In terms of travel, you are limited if you're relying on public transport, and particularly trains. It's fine just getting to and from London, but when then you want to go and explore, you're a bit limited. So again, I would highly recommend that you hire a car. So if you're watching this from America and you're thinking, that's fine, I want to hire a car, be aware that some of the roads in Cornwall are really tiny. So what I would recommend is that you hire a small car which is built for the roads. Don't try and get a bigger car, which is something you're more comfortable with. Trust me, get a smaller car and you'll be thanking me for it if you do this. So where to stay? Well, the best thing for you to do is find a place that suits you better for what you want to see. So you can stay somewhere like Falmouth or St Ives, pick a nice Airbnb from there and base yourself with your hired car and then explore the region you want to see. And if you really just want to get a train from London and don't want to hire, the best place for you to stay is Falmouth, because this station you can get a train direct from London. These are just some places that I think are worth visiting outside of London, and I hope this has given you some great ideas to explore more of my home country. Now, I don't expect you to go to each place that I've recommended, but I implore you to go and visit some of them, especially places like York and Cornwall. Cornwall for me is actually one of the most beautiful areas you can go and see in Western Europe. In my point of view, is overlooked by a lot of people. Now for each of these regions, I didn't really go into that much detail, so if there's any other questions that you have specific to ideas that you want to do, let me know down in the comments. These videos are to help you and help you discover and travel with better information. If you've enjoyed this and you found it helpful to you, please give it a like and think about subscribing, because it really helps me out. And so hopefully I will catch you on the next video. See you later.